I said, choose how I give my energy, who I give my energy to. And so that was a trip that ended up being even more important because I was pregnant, and it's not political people because people thought, oh, let's end racism and let's end this. And it's never in the head. It's the body that needs.
Is that actually anyone can become a change maker with their own tools.
Dance was my safe space. Art comes from necessity.
Mamu Tshi is an artist whose work breaks boundaries, blending movement, music, and ritual to tell stories of identity, migration, community, and transformation. From the Democratic Republic of Congo and raised in Switzerland, Mamu creates from the in-between spaces, between cultures, between worlds, between past and future. Her art is not just performance, it's resistance, healing, and a call to help us process the past in the hope of shaping a better future. In this episode, we uncover what we can learn from Mamu's journey, how to honor complexity, why community is agency, how to use creativity as liberation and truth, and how to claim space in a world that may try to erase you. Get ready to meet not just an artist, but a force that reminds us we all carry stories worth telling.
So Mamu, welcome. It's really nice to have you here with us today. I thought before we start going into your work and the play, I'd love to hear a bit more about your background.
Okay, thank you for having me. So I am Amandine Chijando, and I am also known as Mamu Tshi. So I am a movement artist, Congolese, born, Swiss-based, and I've been in the practice of crump since I think it's 2013. So it's been like 12 years now. And I'm also an English teacher, but this year I'm fully embracing like the artistic side of my journey. And before I met Crump, I was a hip hop dancer, or at least doing routines and choreographies for competitions, and that's how I came across Crump. And now I'm more of a freestyle dancer, trying to also be in different spaces, being like the battle scene, underground sessions, and also now doing shows and plays for theaters. And so now traveling more. And so yeah, that's a bit about me. Yeah.
Mhm. And so you grew up in Switzerland, but you have Congolese origin. I was wondering, because obviously your play explores a lot of that theme, but what does home actually feel to you?
Um, I think that growing up, I had a sense of home that felt like community, and a family that was always like changing, but always had like the same structure in terms of generations. So I had my generations with people I considered my brothers and sisters, who are my cousins, but it was never presented to me that way. And I had like the older generation with like my mothers and fathers, and so home always felt like being together. And so in Switzerland, I would say I had a Congolese home. And so Switzerland feels like home, but because of the part of Congo I found in it. And yeah, I think that growing up, it was clear for me that there were two different spaces. There was like this private space that was um full of like warmth and joy and laughter and coming together, and like sleepless nights with my cousins, and like just going somewhere not knowing when you would go back home. So that was that part that that felt really like home, and there was like the other part of being in Switzerland that was like the outside world, where it's like a different set of rules that then I had to learn because it was like really different from what my parents gave me as an upbringing. So yeah.
And actually, when I came to see your play, Portrait for Amandine, there was that community there. There was present even at the end. Everyone started dancing and doing moonwash, which you can explain also after. But can you tell me a bit about the play? Firstly, maybe how did it come about? How did the idea become? Actually, what was the idea behind it?
So the thing with me is that I don't like to think things through. I like to be in the moment. It's just because I hate it when I cannot control everything. So and it stresses me to think about a play. So it started with me meeting Vincent Baudrier, who is like the head of Théâtre de Midi. And so he saw a small piece I made that was about just yeah, sustainability and how different people relate to nature. That was a short piece on that, and my inspiration for it was my mom and how I felt that she was very green in the way that she approached resources in general. And then in school people tried to teach me how to become more responsible and to save the planet. I was like, oh, but that's my mom, that's what she's been doing forever. And I started digging into that and trying to see how different people related to like nature. And so that was a piece that I made. And the Vincent Baudrier, he then thought about choreographer Faustin Ligné-Coulard, who is like he's a monument like of just choreography in general, not even African choreography, but just like a big choreographer. And he happened to be in Switzerland, so he thought, okay, I'm going to introduce you guys because you're both Congolese and you both also talk about nature. You talk about like heritage and just how to relate to one another and relate to the world. So he thought that could be just interesting to introduce us. And so that's how it started. Me meeting Fustan Yukula, so he's really someone that is incredible. So we ended up talking about the Congo a lot, and we realized that his experience of the Congo, because he was born there, he has lived there his entire life, and my experience of the Congo were like different, just in terms of like how we relate to the culture. And so that's something that was taught to me, whereas it's something that he just was able to experience. So that was different, and also because we are from two different like people. Well, people call it tribe. I hate it, but we are from two different people. He's from Kisangani. I'm from Kananga. So it's like already also different. Like, and we realize that there are a lot of Congos. Like, because Congo is like basically a small continent in itself. It's like it can, yeah, it's the size of like Europe, not Central Europe at least. So then the idea that we had is like, okay, let's meet each other's Congo. Let me go to Kisangani and meet your family and be around nature, and let you. I want you to come to Kananga and also meet my family. And so that's how it started. And then we had the opportunity of making it like a residency and for it to be maybe the soil for the next piece. But we didn't know the form it would take. It was just okay. We are happy to go back and be in the presence of family. And so I had already made a trip 2 years prior to that where the goal was to meet my grandmother. Because I mean she's still alive. I don't know much about her, and so at a certain point it became like something that was like an obsessive thought. So I thought, okay, let's do this while I go back and try and complete that first trip that was short. It's always too short. 2 weeks. God, you want to ask so many things, but it's always too short. So we went there with Fustan to try and complete that first trip. Okay, ask the questions that I didn't think of when I was there. See the sightseeing, walk, talk, dance together, eat together. So that was the plan. We didn't think about like the play. We were like, okay, let's just enjoy that because that's already an experience in itself. And it's also because Fustin, he has this like, um, I can say it's a mentality where it's like, let's not focus on arts like the art, it's let's focus on life. And it's as if like art is at the service of life and not the opposite. So I like that because it was something that was then less stressful because you just live and then you see whatever seems relevant for your art. And so we went there, we recorded, filmed, we wrote, and so that was a trip that ended up being even more important because I was pregnant. By the time we went there, I was pregnant. So that's not something that was planned, but that's how it happened. So it ended up being me going there. My husband also joined the trip, and Fustan was there. So it was like a family trip, going to meet the grandma. So that was like a whole experience. And then coming back, now it became a question of like, what do we want to share? Because that's private. That's your family. What do you want to share? What do you want to keep? And what do you want to say? And so that's how we ended up deciding on the mediums that we were going to use, being like a TV, a mic, dance, and we also decided on, okay, what we were going to try and revisit, and that's how the show came about. So it was very natural in the way it was built. It was like a conversation. Fustin also is someone that likes to mentor people rather than just like um, give you a part that he hasn't. So then that's why it was really a collaboration, and I was also able to sign that as being also my piece. So yeah.
In the play, you actually metaphor this going back, to your family
Mhm.
and rediscovering your grandmother, and you metaphor this with the digging of resources
Mm.
in Congo.
Yeah.
Why that choice?
Um, the thing is, I don't like to talk because that's not my medium. My medium is dancing, so I like to dance. But Fustin really wanted me to talk because he thought I could also help in like yes in sharing more of like the details of it, because when you dance there is something that is like heartfelt that people can connect to, but it also helped in giving a subtext to it. So that's how we had a mic, and I would sometimes just sit and just say whatever. And sometimes we would be like, "Oh, let's keep that. That was relevant. That was fun." And sometimes it was just me being foolish. And so this idea of like talking about uh, Congo being everywhere and everyone having a bit of Congo on them, in them, that's something that was reoccurring, that came back in those like freestyle sessions. And the digging the resources and the fact that it is visible even here, that it's not because we don't see the sweat and the tears that we don't benefit from it and we don't see it. I'm sure that if we scan this room, there is a lot of Congo in here. And so now it became, okay, how can we also mention the fact that Congo is everywhere and is dormant, and that the crisis in Congo also is tied to the crisis everywhere. And tie that to another resource that is extracted, that is the people of Congo that are like fleeing and trying to find just a better life. And that's also a resource, that was also something that is not helping the situation of the country. And so that's how it became evident that, ooh, it became evident that it was tied, that we are talking about the same thing: immigration, extract of resources, cobalt, phones, phone calls, sending money, making money. We are talking about the same thing.
And I think that's such a strong way to put it, because at the lab, we often discuss this question of rethinking the economic system, right? And we talk a lot about the cost of like extracting resources and growth at all cost. Um, but it's we never think about um, as in the people sometimes that we exploit for this system are also then there with us, right? And it's interesting because when I saw your play, I was really overwhelmed with emotions. Even when I talk about it, I get like emotional. Um, and I couldn't, I had to write after about it because I think that you captured really well both the sense of there's a lot of grief, right, around these topics.
Yeah.
Right? And as I think as diasporas, but also I think that's it's not I would say just for example, Congolese diaspora, I think many diasporas from the global south could identify with this question of, um, digging for their past, their ancestries, understanding their place in the world, and somehow having been sometimes considered as somewhat inferior, but yet resourcing the world and providing, the fundamentals for us to have the world that we have today. So it was really, I find it very, very, very moving. The emotions that it brought out, linked to that. How did you actually experience it emotionally, developing it? Because it was very deep, I found.
Yeah, it is. And I think that we, as a people, if I take like Congolese people, but it can be any people that is now considered a minority, even if we make the majority of the people, it's okay. We sometimes develop like coping mechanism, and I know that coping for the generation of our parents or coping for us, it takes a different form. I think that for the generation of our parent, coping was that they had an end goal that was like to help the family that was back home and to try and go back. So it was like they were trying to rob as much as they could while they're here, and try and go back for everyone to enjoy that. And for us, coping, I think it became a matter of like forgetting about like those issues, because it's overwhelming. Like when you think about what's happening in the Congo and you are a Congolese person living in Switzerland, there is like this survivor's guilt. Like, why me? Why am I here while other women are being raped? Why? And so, in order to not think about it, your brain is going to put that on the like in a box, and for you not to open. And so, I think that play was the opportunity for me to also face that. So that was not easy, but there's this sentence from Toni Morrison that says like, if they have to go through it and they have to live it, like the least I can do is to talk about it. And so for me, it became okay. Let's try and be brave enough to talk about that. But if you think about the fact that my medium is dancing, and that when I talk, I only use like metaphors and try to do parallels, that's still me being shy and trying to protect myself from saying like the words that need to be heard. But at least like an attempt to talk about it. And when I think about like the few moments where I talk about the crisis in the Congo, whereas the rest of the play that just talks about my family history, that is interesting that people like they remember those few moments, and they forget that it's a trivial story. That's me just saying, oh, I want to ask questions to my grandma. That is trivial. But when you come at the intersection of like personal history and history with this big H, now that becomes intense, and that's where like it's like, ooh, it brings out things that might not even belong to you. It belongs to like your people in general, I think.
And I think actually that work of addressing the coping, or I would even say maybe like the trauma and the emotions, is so necessary, right? Because if you don't do it, that's a bit how history repeats itself in many ways. And I think that that's maybe also like we talk often, for example, at the lab, how certain topics, for example, linked to sustainability creates, these collective emotions of grief. For example, climate, we have like all the emotions of grief, from anger to bargaining, to complete forms of apathy and denial, right? And so I find it interesting that also in social transformations, in immigration, in dealing with the past, with colonialism, etc., you find that actually a lot of people, a lot of artists have tried to really process those emotions, and we should maybe inspire ourselves from that, to process maybe what's happening now in the world. Um, I was wondering, because you say you were quite shy in addressing things. It doesn't come across at all like this, I have to say. But what's quite funny is, I mean, I know you a little bit, right, from my personal life, and I find it really interesting the difference between seeing you as an artist in movement, in a play, or even discussing your work. You have like such a, like, yeah, an aura that comes out of you. And knowing you personally, where you're a lot more discreet. And I was wondering, is there a real difference between Mamu the artist, Amandine in everyday life, or?
I think it's a matter of context. And I think it's also tied to like my experience as a black woman, where it's there is a level of expectation of performance in the world, I believe, and so I don't want that. It's just that I chose that. It's not something that serves me to perform and to be overly happy, overly caring, but at the same time not too loud, not too. That is something that that might serve the world in general, but I believe it doesn't serve me. So that's something I chose not to do. And when I say I chose, I think that at first it was a matter of like skills. I didn't have the skill set to perform as I was expected to perform as a black woman. Uh, as I said, as a kid, I knew the potential I had because of how I could like be and express myself in the private like realm. And I also realized that I didn't want to do that in the public eye because there was like a lot of backlash just being loud and being mean. And especially when you're a kid, you can really like people would really tell you you're too loud, like sit there, don't do that, dress like this, boom boom boom. And so for me, I think that I quickly realized that being quiet, it would keep me out of trouble. So I remained quiet and I was just observing. And observing is just a way to know how like bright I can shine. So I can dim it. Like it doesn't cost me anything to dim it, but to perform it costs me every like when I have to perform that like in society, when sometimes it's like part of the job where you have to socialize. You have to because that's part of your job. When it's not genuine for me, I am depleted. I hate it. So if like I've decided to at a certain point that if I hate it, I'm not doing it. And it's also because dance was at that point where when I made that decision, dance was my safe space. So when you're in a safe space, it needs to be safe. You are not going to put yourself like be vulnerable at work. Who would do that? So I think there's that part. So people that know me because they've seen me in what I still consider the public eye, where I still need to observe. They see a version of me that is like 5% of what I can be, and it's okay because I think that it's enough for me to still communicate and be nice and still have a good time. But people that then experience me in my safe space, being like it can be in the context of family, it can be in the context of like my art, they then have access to a brighter light. But I think that all those versions are still me, but it's me trying to express myself in a word that is a lot of time violent towards people like me. So yeah, you find tools.
And I think that's actually a really powerful message, right? Because a lot of people think that activists or people that bring about change, they're always, loud, and they always take space, and they're always, the most visible constantly in the room at every time. And actually, like, that's something, also a message we're trying to bring forward, is that actually anyone can become a change maker with their own tools. And so I find that like really strong. Also, especially valuing maybe observe people have this capacity to observe. Because I mean, it's not because you're the loudest that that you're the most right. That's also a big thing. Especially I think in a world where everything is marketable and we teach ourselves always to market ourselves, etc. Maybe it's interesting to also start listening more to those who can just observe. But yeah, but I was wondering, because you call yourself a movement artist, but you worked for a long time in Crump. Why not a Crump artist?
I think that prompt is my main tool that I use when expressing myself. I think that prompt is rooted in radical expression, and so radical is what is at the root of the individual, and so I think that what is at the root of myself is a bit broader than crump. It also has like as we talked about it, like we mentioned it before, Mutwashi, that is like the uh, traditional music and dance style that from my people, so baruba. That's something that I've learned and I've been practicing since like I was a child. I also had some experience in hip hop and choreography, so there is that physicality that I learned from there that still also shines in my crump. And then crump is like my main tool. But I like to call myself a movement artist because I believe that when I'm on stage specifically, I dig in whatever I need to in order to spread the message. And so what you see in my piece, like, is not really always just crump. And so I want to also respect the fact that it's not crump in its purest form. But when you see me in a battle, you see me at the session, I'm crumping now. Now, when you see me at a Congolese party, I'm not crumping. So that's why I'm like, okay, I'm a movement artist because moving is how I like to express myself.
Do you think that being a movement artist is also political or not?
That's a good question. I think that art comes from necessity, like a necessity to, like, at a certain point make things visible, like things that are maybe unseen or uh like put under the rug, or things that are ignored. I think that in general, like, art comes from this like urgency of like, okay, this needs to be seen, this needs to be heard, this needs to be read. And so in that sense, I believe that's political in a way, because it's about how we organize a society, what we believe is important, what we believe is not. So yeah, I would say in that sense, art is political. But I don't think that everyone that is an artist uses these tools to advocate for a cause. I think that certain people use it for themselves to find like a space where they can meditate and like work on a skill, and it's okay. But I think that when you look at like the creation of like crump, for example, as a dance style, or just in general jazz, but I can take even like folklore dance styles, and or even like painting. It came from a place like of okay, let's try and reflect on who we are as a people, where we are as a people, and if there's pain, then it's going to come out of pain. But if it's just like oh, we want to see what we are as a people in terms of heritage, then it's going to be something that doesn't have an element of like activism per se, but it's still going to be political in a way, because that's how society is organized. So yeah, I think that art is political. Yeah, it's then if I take for example Crump, I'm working now on a magazine on Crump, where we wanted to just archive like what is, because the creators of Scrum are still alive, they're still active. There are a lot of videos, there are a lot of things that are written by people from outside of the movement, and we thought, oh, that would be nice to also like value the inputs of those people. And when we talk about like the origins of the style, it's clear that it's also a style that is political. And it's not political people because people thought, oh, let's end racism and let's end this. And it's never in the head. It's the body that needs an outlet that is going to be more radical, that doesn't focus on the form but focuses on the feeling. And so, yeah, it's for me, it's political. When you are talking about the feeling, it's you are also talking about like emotion. So emotion is like your body telling you you need to move. You need to like you cannot stay here. There is something that needs to move. So in that way, Crumb is political, and for me in general, art is political.
It's funny because when I hear you, I realize how much of our work is just thinking. It's not movement, right? Like it's just papers, statistics, etc.
Yeah.
Already I know that like within this podcast, one of the things we were trying to do is like maybe go a step further in trying to connect more on a human level. But it's true that we rarely think of movement, of just being in action. And I wonder sometimes, are we just sometimes overthinking things in a sense? But yeah, no, I was wondering though how because so you became a mom.
Yeah.
You were pregnant when you were developing the play. How did that change your perspective on things, on the play?
Yeah.
On maybe how you looked at your ancestry as well, and you looked at your grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it changes a lot because I mean, we were talking about that when you're pregnant, there is something about like your body being a vehicle from the unknown to the word, right? And so there is something quite magical that you are the only one that is experiencing, and that people sometimes ignore. So there is a it's as if you have this secret and everyone like no one is aware of it, whereas like showing. And so for me that was already a special moment in itself. And so creating work or art while creating life, for me that was like incredible combo. I was like, okay, now um I'm onto something. And so at first I fought the idea. I thought that, oh, maybe it's not good timing because I need to focus on this and that. And then I thought, no, that is perfect timing because it's really like it takes time. You need to be connected to the body, and now because you're pregnant, you have to. You cannot just like do sleepless nights, and you have to follow the energy that you have. And so it already changed me in that way, being more in tune with what is happening now and not thinking about like the end goal. And then when I gave birth to Zai, so my son, it's also yeah, it's great. It's like it's such a wonderful moment, like the first month, and at the same time, everything that I worked on is still like in the background. It's still developing in the background. Even if I'm not focusing on that, it's still like doing its own work. So then for me there was this understanding of like um ideas and art is not something that you build. It's not something that you create, but it's something you tap in. It's something you have access to. But it's still doing its way. And then when it's possible because there is a sort of alignment, then you are going to access it again. And maybe it has grown, maybe not, maybe some things are more evident. And so it already changed me when it came to like how I related to my work and being more um I can say empathetic towards myself, not like trying to push myself, being like, oh, you need to have these goals met or else you are not worthy. It's like, no, if you can, that's good. If you cannot, it means that it was meant that way. and just in general as a person, it's like you have to check yourself now. It's like you cannot just be following the wind and be whatever you want. You have to be uh, intentional in what you do now. And it's not even just for the kid, it's just for because time is now different. Like you don't have as much time as you used to. Sleep is now different. uh just family also has a different meaning for you now. You cannot fight over everything with your husband or your partner. Now it becomes like of okay, let's be intentional. Let's be intentional in how I relate to people and also how I relate to myself. And so I think that's something that was really possible just after I gave birth. It was I was not like I did not access that like understanding of life before. And yeah, I think that that's how it also changed me. There is the part with the work, whereas now even if I have this big competition coming up, for example in at the end of May, I had this like training program where I was like, okay, let's do this, and that, and I didn't, and I'm like, yeah, that's okay. That's always good to have a plan, but uh, if it doesn't work, let's not make it a big deal. Let's see how I can still manage with the time I have left. Yeah.
And I always think sometimes we underestimate implicating parents because, I mean, dealing with uncertainty, the question of empathy and care. I can remember when I had my son, I think it was maybe a day or two after, and I had like this weird, I think probably hormones dropping or what have you, but I was like, how am I going to protect him from this world? And it was really, I went into full like anxiety, etc. But then I also went into this thing of like, oh my god, we need to do better. And it's really interesting like how much it changes your sense of empathy, but also then feeling far more responsible. You put yourself in another position, right? Yeah. Like I feel that when you're looking at yourself as a when I wasn't a parent, I looked or identified more to being cared for, right? Being cared for by my family, my mom, etc. And now I look about how we should care for. It's really interesting the shift. But yeah, I was wondering because you talk a lot about race. Yeah. And I'm thinking, did you get that experience too? That sometimes, because I've worked a lot on racism, I find that racism is almost an experience that is very strong to the Western reality. I mean, maybe not just Western reality, because you can find obviously discriminations in countries across the world, etc. But the level of maybe the topic or how we talk about Black identities, for example, if I talk about a Black identity to my father in West Africa, he's like, no, he doesn't get the concept, right? And so I find it interesting how because there is that topic somehow a little bit in your in your play, but also in Crump especially. In the question of community here. But then when you rediscover and you go back to the question of also Congo with Fustin, etc., did that change your perspective, for example, on like what race means? What does it mean to be a Black woman? Yeah.
The thing is, for me, it depends on how you identify it. And what was clear when growing up, because I grew up in a single parent household. My mom was the head of the household, and she had a perspective on racism where it was like, uh let's not have this be the focus of your energy. Like you have things to do. Like okay, yeah. And I remember being a kid and going to her, oh, someone said my skin looks like doo doo. And she was like, does your skin look like doo doo? No. So why do you give energy to that? You know, like it came to a point where she was like, you know who you are. Like, let's not focus on them. There are going to be stupid people. There are going to be ignorant people. But if you give them energy, now you lose your light. And so for my mom, it was never a question. And it was not something that was dismissed. Like, it does not happen. But for her, it was like, that's not why we came here. Like that's not what we came here to do. So let's not focus. It's as if you are doing a podcast and then someone starts doing like construction work and now you're always like checking for them. So for her, it was like, we came here to do. Let's do that and don't give them any attention. And so I think that I grew up with then a sense of like, this happens, but I should focus on what I want to do because this is like a sort of distraction and this is a lie. And it was clear, like, the thing is, when my mom says something, you believe it. Like, she has that energy to her where it's like, if she says water is blue, even if science says it's like it doesn't have any color, you say, yeah, it's blue. My mom says it. Like, and I think every mom has like that level of like being the truth. And so if my mom says that it's not important and it's a lie, I'm going to believe it regardless. Then growing up, you read and you understand that it was truly a lie, and you understand like where that came from and how it was like implanted in our heads. But I'm happy that I grew up identifying to an African woman that did not identify as a black woman, because black is already a concept that is created. And if you identify as a black woman, then it means that you are always in comparison with whiteness. I was not comparing myself to whiteness. Uh, Unless someone was trying to push me that way, that's not something that came like first nature was not that. So that's one thing. The second thing is that when I think about like racism, uh I was lucky. I grew up in the hood. It's not really, it's Switzerland, so we cannot say the hood. But I grew up in Bordenet. So Bordenet is like a neighborhood that is like projects. It's like for low income people, and it's really built like a small city. And so I grew up with people that were mostly immigrants or poor people. And so at first it was not really an issue to talk about race. We talked about not having money. That was the main issue. And then we talked about how to make it out of that situation. And so that was the main focus. So racism, it really came about maybe when I was like entering like teenage years, or it's like, oh, you're not beautiful. I don't want to be your girlfriend or your boyfriend because of this, that, and then you're like, ah, here is that thing again. But when we were like in the bubble, it was not a question. And I think I was protected because of that. I think that if I grew up, like if I had grown up in a maybe more a wealthy neighborhood, it would have come up sooner, and it might have like had an impact on my identity. But I was protected from that, so I don't identify as a black woman per se. First, I identify as an African woman, and even when it comes to social class, because both my parents were so my father was an English teacher and my mom was an accountant. So that's their social class of origin, and they've always identified to that social class, meaning that even my mom, when she came here and she had to do whatever job she had to do, it didn't strip things from like her sense of self worth. She knew like where God had placed her. Like she knew it. It didn't take anything away. She was just doing that to serve the family. And my father was even an English teacher after like migrating to Switzerland. So I always identified to my origin social class. So even here, I was like, yeah, I'm poor for now because we want to help the family, but I'm not. I'm not poor. Like I'm not stupid. Like I know I can study. My mom has always taught me like you're smart, so whatever you put your mind to it, you are going to be. She never talked about like the obstacles I would come across. So whenever there were obstacles, I was like, that's weird. That shouldn't be there. Whereas to say, oh my God, now I cannot. So yeah, I think that there is something maybe specific about my situation where it's like maybe my mom like presented things in a way that made me think I could overcome those obstacles.
And I can really identify with that because so I grew up with a white English mom who came from a very poor background, so like working class, but went to university, etc., and then grew up in a very wealthy area in Switzerland. And it's really interesting because when I compare it to a lot of people that are close to me now that have grown up in more poorer areas in Switzerland, there is something that we have in difference is this confidence in, I can do this or I can do that. Whereas when you grow up from a certain background, even that is a difference with my mom. When you grow up from a very working class background, there's also sometimes something instilled in you that you can't do it, right? That you shouldn't take the space, you shouldn't take that legitimacy. And often I know that we associate that sometimes also to race, etc. But it's true that it's also very much a social class reality. Yeah. But it's true also that I find that's the difference sometimes when I compare, for example, with my partner who grew up in a space that was a lot less socio-economically wealthy than mine. They had a community, which I didn't grow up with that. So it's really interesting because I may be a lot more confident, right, in work or taking that space. But in that, I do realize how community completely changes your reality and gives you kind of this safety net somehow, right? And you talk about community also at the very beginning of this interview. And is community protection to you?
I think that community is life. uh so yeah, community is life. I think that's how we were meant to connect with one another, is being a network of people. I know that when it came to family, as I said, it was something that was big. I knew that I had people around me that I could go to. It being family, it could be like church, it could be just in general, like the neighborhood. It's like already a family in itself, or a village, like we like to say. It takes a village. For me, that was the village. And then when I came across Crump, I think that's also what drew me into the dance style, is that you have that circle of people like that are vibing. It's like a heartbeat. They are vibing together, and there is like one person at the center, and you're like, wow, like they're all screaming, and they're just happy to be one and connected to the story, and or the energy. And so I think community is really important. I think that I could not have like made it, and when I say made it, is like uh try to like reach my goals and whatever I believe my calling is, if I didn't have a community of people. And even like being a mom without a community, it looks like hell. I don't know how people do it. I don't want it. I don't want it. But with a community, everything becomes like more like manageable. You feel like you're living, like you're not surviving. You feel like you're living. You're having wonderful moments. Like, for example, I have four siblings. The three of them also have kids, and like we just had the Easter holidays, and we were not able to travel because I had to work abroad, so I could not go. And then there was like this family emergency, so we decided, okay, let's just have sleepovers. And so we had many sleep, and that's when you realize that you can drop your kid, go sleep. He's with his uncle and all his cousins, and they're having the best time of their lives. And now, because we do that so much for them, it's like it's a given. They're like, "Wait, when are we going to go and see this?" We're like, we cannot see each other every day, we don't live together. But they also understood like this sense of like community is just normal. We are not just a nuclear family with mom, dad, and no, it's like a family that is like bigger than this. And I think that it's something that lightens like the burden that we have when we have to be parents, but also working in society, but also being friends with I don't know how many people, socialize. There's a lot that is expected of us, and when you have a sense of community, you can do it all at once. You don't have to wear many hats. It's just you. Yeah.
Community is a form of agency, then.
Yeah, I think so. Especially in a world that has sold to people that you have to be this individual that will make it out of just because of will and consistency and work ethic. I think having a community also teaches you that in case it doesn't go your way, uh, it's okay. I got you. Like that sense of having someone's back and for people to have your back, I think is something that uh, it calms you. You're not anxious anymore. Like what if it's okay? I got people. Like yeah, it's a form of agency when you're stripped, like when your power is stripped away from you. You need people to have like power. Mm.
And it's interesting because so often in our work, we talk about, valuing indigenous perspective, valuing diversity, etc. And often it's seen as like, okay, like it's nice, it's a nice to have, but not it's like core to change. And I always think, well, actually, it's core to understanding community, and that's how you navigate change, right? Like we work in the field of multilateralism, so the goal is to make coexist, so many cultures and realities. But what's interesting is that often those groups or those minorities, or which are not sometimes minorities, have been able to survive through a more collectivist perspective. And so that means they're also much better at navigating diversity. Yeah. Because I mean, when you've been in a collectivist reality, you know that, you have to navigate very different personalities. We all have, that weird cousin or uncle, but we still love them. And it's just a way of being able to have to navigate the collective, right? Yeah. And I think there's a lot to learn from groups that have built communities, whether it's for question economic reasons, whether it's cultural reasons, whether it's just in their reality, in their existence. And I think that's why it's so core to integrate different perspectives. Sometimes in multilateralism, is maybe that we have to go back to thinking, how do we build, the world almost as a community to face certain very real global challenges.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like how to build, but it's like um how to allow people to be in community. I think that it's when you live in the Western world, it's not meant to be that way, and so in order for you to be able to connect with a community, it takes a lot of like courage if you are not from a community to try and find one. I know that, for example, people that live in Switzerland, they say it's really hard to make friends when arriving in Switzerland, and so there is that element, and how can we just let people that have been surviving because of the communities that they have how can we value that and maybe give them space and maybe I don't know, it's like we were if I give a specific example, we were talking with my husband about like this concept that exists in Switzerland that is proche aidant, so helping a relative, right? And that is something that you could ask for a leave at work because, for example, your husband has had surgery, and so you're still getting paid because you're helping relative. And we said, but why isn't it a concept, for example, that could be broader, where you could have, for example, the grandparents being paid to care for their grandchildren, right? And so it means that even if your parents are not retired yet and they want to take care of their grandchildren, that's something they can ask, and society values that and would pay them for that. And that is not a thing, and that's not possible. And they're going to say, yeah, it's because of budget. And but at the end of the day, that is encouraging people to build community, to be with one another. And sometimes see that there is a resistance there, um, especially when it comes to the budget. You can do whatever you want, but when you ask for money, they're like, hey, let's not, let's not do that. And that's, I think that's a shame. But when I think about like Congolese people, they only know how to live through community. I don't know a lot of Congolese people or Congolese rooted people, because there are some people, as I said, that like to identify as black or other, that love it when they're just like individuals, like functioning like without any ties to their family or to the community. I think that's just a general movement that we have, where we want to connect. Like, even if you travel to Sweden and you walk and you see a black person, you're like, hey, let's, there's a, and I think it's also because of like the context of oppression, where it's like, I need to know when I come in the room, I need to know how many allies I have with me in case. But that's good, because that goes in the direction of community as well.
And actually, like, I think it's very much linked, as you said, to budget, but like exactly the economic system. Because I think sometimes in the West we forget that it's not always historically been right an individualist society. That's very much the product of our economic system. I mean, that's why even in Switzerland, I like going in the mountains, for example, in summer, etc. And then you sometimes realize how much Switzerland was built through community, right?
Yeah.
Even its like political system is based on that originally, is this sense of actually collectivism.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting how we've also, you know, set certain narratives in the West about individualism as if it's part, you know, of our culture. And actually, I think it's very much the product of economic growth and growth at all costs, even if it costs maybe our human nature somehow of being connected. But we're running out of time, so I just have one last question.
Yeah.
I was wondering, well, actually, it's maybe two questions in
Okay.
one. One is, do you have like any other projects in the pipeline that you could discuss with us? And second, maybe in line with that, like, what do you hope your artistic legacy to be?
Yeah. As I said, for me, it's always like art is at the service of like life, and that's how I like it. You can do whatever you want, but that's how I like it. And so now the questions that are like recurring for me are questions about like gender and mental health in general. So the weight of like the racial load, the weight of it when we think about building an identity. That's like one part of like what I want to work on, and the other part is like the tools of resilience that have been built by the people that have to carry that racial load, basically. And so yeah, I think when I think about like crump, hip hop, like jazz, and all like even rumba in Congo, and all like capoeira, name it, like all those tools that were developed by black people or Afro descendants in order to survive. Um, I'm interested in knowing like what part it played in also helping other Afro descendants and maybe healing in general in navigating like the Western centered world. That's something that interests me. So my next piece, I want to focus on mental health and a sense of peace and vulnerability for Black men. I hate it that it's not something that they have, that is given. I hate it because I cannot imagine what it feels like when you're not allowed to rest and be at peace. So I want to work on that because I want to understand like how they still manage, and hopefully like we will be able to have a work or working environment that feels like a safe space for them. That's what I hope. But yeah, that's like the next thing in the pipeline. And when it comes to my legacy, I don't really think about that because I don't think that's like for me to say. I think that in whenever I'm not here, people can say, "Oh, she was just an angry black woman." That's on them. Like, but at the end of the day, that could be what people believe is my legacy. So yeah, I don't really think about that, but what I want in general for myself now, because that's what I'm focused on, is to be able to, as I said, choose how I give my energy, who I give my energy to, and what I want to work on. And for me, that's already a sense of freedom. So if there is a legacy, I hope that it's just going to be in the lines of like freedom.